A warrior stands upon the shattered ramparts of a world that has already died. His armor is the color of midnight, scored and blasted by energies that defy physical law, yet he does not register the damage. He does not see the poisoned sky or the legions of the dead that claw at the fortress stones. In his mind, it is 10,000 years ago. The sky is the pristine blue of a world called Terra, and the fortress is the Eternity Gate. He screams a name that is not his own, for a father he has never met as he fights a battle that was lost before he was born. He is an angel of death, a son of the Emperor, a bulwark against the terror. He is built to be unbreakable, and he is broken. This is the fate of an Adeptus Astartes when the fortress of the mind finally catastrophically falls. The Imperium of man is built upon a foundation of myths, and few are more central than the perfection of its space marines. To the trillions of citizens who live and die under the shadow of the Aquila, they are legends given form, post-human demigods, immune to fear, doubt, and despair. The chapter is presented as a flawless monolith, each battle brother an identical expression of its martial ideal. But this is a necessary lie told to a galaxy that would shatter if it knew the truth. For every Astartes is first a man, and the process that forges him into a warrior is one of terrible, inhuman violence. Psycho-conditioning scours the psyche, hypnodoctrination rebuilds it, and grueling spiritual flagellation tempers it. The goal is not to create a man who feels no fear, but a man who can master it absolutely. The goal is a mind as hardened as ceramite, a will as inflexible as adamantium. Yet in the crucible of unending war, even adamantium can fracture. And when an Astartes breaks, the chapter must confront the failure of its own foundational promise. It must decide what is to be done with a weapon that has turned against its own purpose, a soul that has become a liability to the very brotherhood it was sworn to protect. The solutions are as varied and as desperate as the chapters themselves, and almost all are hidden behind layers of ritual, secrecy, and shame. The most infamous of these psychological failings are those that have been given names, their horror tamed by ritual and doctrine. For the 9 legions who trace their lineage to the great angel Sanguinius, the flaw is twofold: a spiritual poison passed down through 10 millennia of tainted gene seed. The first is the red thirst, a deep-seated craving for blood that whispers to every son of Baal. It is a constant gnawing hunger that must be mastered through prayer, meditation, and sheer agonizing force of will. Most succeed. They live their long lives on the edge of a precipice, transhuman predators holding their own nature at bay. But for some, the whispers become a roar. The thirst overwhelms them, turning them into ravening beasts, indistinguishable from the monsters they hunt. These brothers are typically locked away in the Tower of the Lost on their chapter's homeworld, their existence a closely guarded secret, a source of perpetual shame. They are the quiet failures, the ones whose end is a slow descent into animalism, far from the glory of the battlefield. The second, more terrible flaw is the black rage. It is not a mere hunger, but a psychic cataclysm, a genetic memory of such profound trauma that it can overwrite a warrior's own consciousness. On the eve of battle, a son of Sanguinius may suddenly find his mind cast back through time and space to the deck of the vengeful spirit at the height of the Horus heresy. He is no longer himself. He is his primarch, Sanguinius, facing down the arch-traitor Horus at the very moment of his own death. The sheer agony and despair of that final galaxy-altering confrontation floods his soul. To the outside world, he becomes a figure of terrifying, single-minded fury, possessed of a strength and savagery that borders on the supernatural. He no longer recognizes friend from foe, seeing only the face of the great betrayer in all who stand before him. This is the Black Rage, and there is no cure. But unlike the Red Thirst, the chapter has found a use for this madness. Those who succumb are gathered into the death company. They are repainted in armor of stark black, marked only by the red saltires of the lost. They are given the Emperor's peace by their chaplains, their souls commended to the Master of mankind. And then they are unleashed. They are a weapon of pure suicidal fury, sent against the most hardened targets, thrown into the most hopeless battles. They are the chapter's lost sons, granted one final glorious and utterly tragic act of service. Their end is not a quiet fading in a hidden tower, but a bloody, spectacular immolation on the altar of war. In this, the Blood Angels and their successors have turned their greatest shame into a horrifying but effective tactical tool. It is a form of ritualized sacrifice, a way of giving meaning to a fate that would otherwise be a meaningless tragedy. They do not save their fallen brothers, for they cannot. Instead, they honor their fall by ensuring it is a magnificent one. This weaponization of a genetic flaw is not unique to the sons of Sanguinius. Far to the galactic north, the space wolves of Fenris contend with their own inner beast. The Canis Helix, the unique element of their gene seed, grants them heightened senses and a savage spirit, but it carries a terrible risk. In moments of extreme stress or injury, the helix can overwhelm a warrior's metabolism, triggering a horrifying transformation. His bones crack and reset, his muscles swell, and his mind recedes as a primal, lupine intelligence takes over. He becomes a Wulfen, a hulking, semi-sentient creature of immense power and uncontrollable rage. For millennia, the Space Wolves viewed this as the ultimate curse, a final, shameful end for a warrior of Russ. The appearance of a Wulfen was a dark omen, and the creature was to be hunted down and killed by its own brothers, a grim duty known as the Lone Hunt. But the legends also spoke of the 13th Great Company, a company comprised entirely of Wulfen who vanished into the Eye of Terror alongside their Primarch, Leman Russ. In the dark days of the 41st millennium, these legends proved true. The Wulfen returned, not as mindless beasts, but as noble savages, their minds partially intact, their loyalty to the All-Father unwavering. Their reappearance forced the chapter to reevaluate its ancient shame. Now the Wulfen are no longer hunted. They are seen as a sacred echo of their Primarch's own savage nature, a blessing from the All-Father in a time of greatest need. They are incorporated into the chapter's battle lines, their untamed ferocity a potent shock weapon. Like the Death Company, the Wulfen are a flaw turned into a strength, a curse that has been recast as a holy sign. But the truth remains more complex. For every noble Wulfen who retains a shred of his former self, there are others who are lost completely to the beast. The line between a sacred warrior and a mindless monster is perilously thin, and the Space Wolves walk it with a mixture of pride and deep, unspoken fear. The ritual has changed, but the risk has not. But what of the chapters who have no such famous named affliction? What of the stoic Imperial Fists, the noble Ultramarines, the stealthy Raven Guard? Their gene seed is held to be among the most stable, their doctrines the most rigorously applied. They have no death companies, no Wulfen packs. When one of their own breaks, the failure is quieter, more personal, and in many ways more disturbing. For these chapters, psychological collapse is not a glorious, tragic inheritance from a Primarch. It is a simple, there is no glory in them, no tactical advantage to be gained from a warrior who cannot bear the touch of his own power armor, or one who spends his days obsessively dismantling and reassembling his bolter. convinced it is the only thing keeping the void at bay. For these quiet collapses, the solutions are equally quiet. The records are, of course, silent on such matters, for no chapter would ever admit to such failings in its official chronicles. But whispers persist, passed down from senior officers to their chosen successors. They speak of the chambers of solitude, where a brother might be given a lifetime to find his peace, or lose his mind completely, far from the sight of his comrades. They speak of the final vigil, an honorific given to a warrior who is sent to guard a remote, meaningless outpost on a dead world, there to live out his days in isolation, his true condition known only to the chapter command. This is a merciful sentence, a form of honorable exile. The other solutions are far grimmer. A chaplain may have a final, private conversation with a failing brother, a talk of duty and sacrifice that ends with the warrior volunteering for a mission from which there is no possible return. It is suicide. But it is suicide cloaked in the language of honor. And in the most extreme cases where a brother's madness poses a direct threat to the chapter's security or spiritual purity, there is the ministrations of the Apothecarian, a final, lethal dose of sedatives, administered under the guise of medical treatment, a quick, clean, and utterly secret end. The warrior's name is inscribed on the wall of martyrs, his death attributed to a training accident or a sudden illness. The lie is preserved. The monolith remains to all outward appearances uncracked. The brotherhood is protected, but at the cost of a secret, gnawing hypocrisy at its very heart. This burden of secrecy falls most heavily upon the senior ranks of a chapter: the captains, the librarians, the chaplains, and the apothecaries. They are the keepers of the chapter's soul, and they must carry the weight of its hidden shames. A chaplain whose duty is to uphold the spiritual health of his brothers must also be the one to judge when a soul is beyond saving. He must look a warrior in the eye, a warrior he has fought alongside for a century, and decide if his path ends in redemption or in a quiet, unmarked grave. It is a terrible calculus, weighing the life of one brother against the integrity of 1,000. The master of the forge must watch for the signs of obsessive tinkering that signal a mind losing its grip on reality. The chief librarian must police the thoughts of his brethren, searching not just for the taint of chaos, but for the more mundane, yet equally dangerous seeds of despair and madness. They form an unspoken cabal within the chapter, the guardians of a truth that would demoralize the younger battle brothers and shatter the faith of the Imperium at large. It is in this context of hidden tragedy that one of the Imperium's most enduring mysteries must be considered: the Legion of the Damned. They appear without warning in the most desperate battles. Spectral Astartes, wreathed in cold fire, their black armor adorned with images of bone and flame. They fight with silent, implacable fury, turning the tide of hopeless engagements before vanishing as mysteriously as they arrived. Inquisitorial investigation has proven fruitless. Their origins are unknown, their nature a complete enigma. Some hold that they are a psychic echo of the Lost Firehawks chapter, destroyed in a warp storm millennia ago. Others believe they are an instrument of the Emperor's will, a manifestation of his psychic might sent to aid his beleaguered sons. But within the secret councils of certain chapters, a different theory is whispered. It is a desperate, hopeful myth. They whisper that the Legion of the Damned is composed of the souls of Astartes who have been failed by their chapters. The mad, the broken, the despairing, those who were given a quiet end, or who fell on missions designed to expend them. The theory holds that the Emperor, in his infinite and inscrutable wisdom, refuses to let their sacrifice be in vain. He gathers up these lost souls, burns away their madness and their pain in the cold fire of the warp, and forges them anew into instruments of pure vengeance. It is a belief that offers a sliver of redemption for the chapter's darkest secret. It suggests that even in their most pragmatic and ruthless acts, there is a path to grace. It allows a chaplain to believe that the brother he condemned to death may yet serve the emperor in a higher, purer form. Few dare to speak this theory aloud, and none can prove it. But the myth persists, a testament to the hope for atonement that lies even in the most hardened of transhuman hearts. The question is often asked, by imperial strategists and armchair generals alike, have the Adeptus Astartes grown weaker over the millennia? Is the gene seed of the 41st millennium a pale imitation of that which conquered the galaxy during the Great Crusade? But this is to fundamentally misunderstand the nature of their struggle. It is not that the Astartes have become weaker. It is that the galaxy has become infinitely more hostile to the sanity they are meant to embody. The warriors of the Great Crusade fought for a tangible, optimistic future under the direct leadership of their primarchs and the emperor himself. They fought against alien empires and human recalcitrants. The horrors of the warp were a new and shocking revelation, not a constant, grinding reality. A space marine of the modern Imperium knows no such hope. He is born into a galaxy that has been dying for 10,000 years. His primarch is a distant martyred saint, his emperor a silent, enthroned corpse. He fights not for conquest, but for mere survival, a holding action against inevitable doom. Every battle brings him into contact with horrors that would have shattered the minds of his ancestors. He stands against the biological nightmares of the tyrannid hive fleets, the soulless machinations of the Necrons, and the sanity-warping influence of chaos, which now spills from the Great Rift across half the galaxy. A veteran of several centuries has witnessed more terror, more despair, and more existential dread than any human mind was ever meant to contain. He has seen worlds devoured, civilizations extinguished, and his own brothers corrupted into gibbering monstrosities. The hypno-conditioning that armors his mind was designed for a different, simpler kind of war. It can brace him against fear, but it offers little protection against the profound philosophical despair that comes from staring into the abyss for centuries on end. The breaking of an Astartes mind is not, then, a sign of weakness. It is an industrial inevitability, a predictable outcome of placing a finely tuned machine into an environment of absolute, soul-destroying chaos. The fact that any of them remain sane is the true miracle. The fortress of the mind was built to withstand a siege, not a 10,000-year psychic earthquake. And now, as the cicatrix maledictum tears the galaxy in two, that earthquake has reached its zenith. The very fabric of reality has grown thin, and the whispers of the warp are no longer confined to the minds of psychers. Every Astartes feels it. A constant low-level hum of wrongness that frays the nerves and erodes the foundations of his conditioning. The incidence of psychological collapse is rising across all chapters, regardless of their gene lineage. The old quiet solutions are proving insufficient for the sheer scale of the crisis. A chapter could hide one or two broken brothers. It could sustain a death company of a few dozen. But what does it do when a tenth of its fighting strength begins to show signs of instability? What happens when the guardians of the secret shames, the chaplains and apothecaries, begin to break themselves under the strain? The return of the Primarch Robut Guilliman and the advent of the Primaris Marines has offered a new hope, a new generation of warriors to hold the line. But they, too, are an unknown quantity. Their minds, conditioned in the secret vaults of Mars for millennia, have their own tolerances, their own breaking points. They have not had centuries to acclimate to the horrors of the galaxy. They have been thrust into its darkest hour. The reports coming back from the front lines of the Indomitus Crusade are filled with glorious victories, but they are also peppered with troubling addenda, sealed at the highest levels of command. Reports of Primaris units exhibiting unforeseen levels of aggression or falling into deep states of melancholia after exposure to certain psychic phenomena. The new bulwark may have its own, as yet undiscovered structural flaws. The Imperium is more desperate for its angels of death than ever before, and the chapters are under immense pressure to deploy every available warrior. The temptation to overlook the initial signs of instability, to send a brother who is showing cracks back into the fray, is enormous. Some chapters, it is whispered, have begun to embrace their flaws not as a ritualized exception, like the Blood Angels or Space Wolves, but as a new and terrible norm. Chapters on the wrong side of the Great Rift, cut off from the light of Terra and the authority of the High Lords, are said to have devolved into renegade warbands, their particular madness now defining their entire culture. A chapter of Imperial Fist's successors, known for their stoicism, might become pathologically obsessed with fortification, refusing to leave their fortress monastery, seeing enemies in every shadow. A Raven Guard successor might fall so deeply into stealth and paranoia that they begin to assassinate Imperial officials they deem incompetent, their war of shadows turning inward. These are the chapters that go silent. They do not fall to chaos in a blaze of glory and betrayal. They simply fade away, consumed by the internal contradictions they can no longer suppress. They become another kind of monster, a cautionary tale whispered by the few who know the truth. They are the ultimate result of a system under unbearable, unending pressure. They do not just break. They warp into something new and terrifying. A dark reflection of the perfection they were meant to embody. In the end, what remains is the image with which we began. The lone warrior standing on a dead world, fighting a battle that exists only in his shattered mind. He is the secret at the heart of the Adeptus Astartes. He is the proof that their perfection is a myth, their indomitability a hope rather than a fact. The chapters of the Space Marines are the greatest fighting force humanity has ever conceived, but they are an organization defined as much by the management of their failures as by the celebration of their successes. They are a brotherhood that must by necessity lie to itself and to the galaxy it protects. They must uphold the ideal of the unbreakable warrior while quietly, secretly, disposing of the evidence of those who have broken. They must preach of honor and glory while practicing a grim, pragmatic calculus of loss and containment. And now, as the darkness closes in and the very laws of reality begin to fray, the systems they have built to manage this internal crisis are failing. The madness is spreading not as a glorious rage, but as a slow, creeping despair. Such is the nature of their long war. Their greatest enemy is not the Xenos, nor the heretic, nor the demon. It is the vast, uncaring emptiness of the cosmos and the terrible fragility of the human soul that they must carry into it. The unbreakable warrior is a beautiful, necessary lie. The truth is far more tragic. They are built to bear a burden that no soul can bear forever. And one by one, century by century, they fall, not always to an enemy's blade, but to the sheer crushing weight of their own immortal duty. And the chapter, in its quiet, terrible wisdom, must decide what is to be done.